Yakuza 0. I have procrastinated for way too long to talk about this game, man. I couldn't get round to writing a script for it. And it's not as easy as writing a script for a Call of Duty video or a WWE video or a Need for Speed video, because I honestly don't really know how to approach Yakuza 0 in terms of a video. It is such a different game that I couldn't figure out how to really even start it. So here we are. I'm actually just going to do it off the top of my head and talk about a lot of the stuff that I experienced. This is my first Yakuza game. I put a little bit of research in to basically figure out which was the best Yakuza game to start with. And Yakuza 0, I found out, was specially made for this purpose. It's set before all of the Yakuza games. I think there's 7 of them, at least for this character storyline. Kiryu, I think his name was. Again, I haven't actually played Yakuza 0 in about 2-3 months. This is how much I procrastinated on this video. I was like, I don't want to play this anymore until I've done the video on it. And yeah, fast forward 3 months later, yeah, here we are. So I'm just doing it off the cuff, and we're just going to talk about everything that I really experienced. So yeah, straight away, this is your usual gameplay. Most of it surrounds exploring this little city. It's a semi-free roam sort of game, and it's based on Japanese culture, which is the best culture. I think it's Japanese anyway. It's Yakuza, right? So it's Japanese. So yeah, we got this like little fighting thing. It's really cool. It's really easy to get into as well, but you can't exactly play like, you know, you can't really play it casually, at least from my experience. I actually struggled quite a little bit, but I do love how you can just pick up random pieces from the environment. There is a certain part in Chapter 1 where you go through an entire building and you just fight dozens of thugs on your way up to basically the final boss of the first chapter. This is a long game, by the way. I've only done the first 2 chapters. Obviously, I plan to finish the game, obviously. But yeah, it's really fun. You get a block, obviously. You get to obviously punch, kick, throw random pieces of the environment, send other people in the environment. Again, I'll keep covering the Chapter 1 massive fight in the building, because there is so much you can interact with in some of these fights. It's so cool. So I think probably the best part of Yakuza 0 would be the story, you know? I feel like they couldn't really decide on how to tell it. Some of them are fully voice-acted cutscenes. Some of them are still images. It's odd. It's really odd, but yeah, like I said, it tells the story in multiple ways, but what I can tell you is that the story is actually really good. Now, obviously, there's no English dub, but English dubs in a lot of these, like, in Japanese cultured movies or games, the dubs usually fucking suck. So, sorry for the swearing. I try not to swear, because of the whole YouTube terms of service sort of thing, but yeah, I'm not exaggerating there. They really do suck. So yeah, obviously, it stays in what I assume to be Japanese, but obviously we have the English subtitles, and it's actually written quite well for a game that isn't exactly made for English people, you know? It's not exactly catered towards that demographic, and that's why you hardly ever hear of this game, you know? But when you do actually give it a try, you get hooked. Like, it's a really engaging game, and you wouldn't expect it, because as soon as you realize, oh, this is an open world free roam, you kind of get a little disappointed, but then you realize just how much content is actually packed into this semi-free roaming world. It's so good. It is so good. It's so engaging. I sunk hours of my time into this game, and this came around the time I was getting back into Ratchet and Clank as well, because they just put out all the old games for the 20th anniversary. So, you know, to keep me engaged when I could be playing Ratchet and Clank, which is one of my favorite franchises ever, that's impressive. You know, I'm a kid with ADHD. I would want to keep playing something that keeps me engaged 100%, and Yakuza 0 is one of those games. I find it so fun. I think the story so far is really good. I'm not really going to show too many, well, I'm not really going to tell you too many spoilers. There might be spoilers in terms of the video, but you won't know that if you've not played the game. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So obviously, I'm going to spoil a little bit of the first chapter. Basically, you play as Kiryu, who is a member of the Yakuza, I think the Dojima family, if I remember. And it starts off with you collecting a debt. Now, it seems to go quite smoothly. You're in this alleyway. Kiryu is obviously beating the bejesus out of this guy, but end of the day, he claims the money, and the guy is just left crawling around, battered and beaten. And obviously, you claim your payment from the loan shark eventually, and everything seems to go smoothly. Fast forward, obviously, we meet Nishikiyama, who is another member of the Yakuza that Kiryu basically grew up with, and yeah, they ended up becoming part of the Yakuza, part of the Dojima family. He is, again, a fun-loving dude, loves to party, dresses eccentrically, kind of reminds me of Geordie Chin from Watch Dogs, if you remember him. Any of you Watch Dogs fans out there, shout out to you. But yeah, obviously, he takes us to go out for drinks, karaoke. This is where the full charm of Yakuza 0 really comes into play. There are two completely different sort of vibes in Yakuza 0. I'm assuming from Yakuza in general. There's the really serious and dark parts. There's some really introspective parts. Like, there's some amazing character development here, at least for Kiryu anyway, from what I've gathered. But of course, there's this really fun and honestly goofy side of the game that honestly it just made me fall in love with the game. And like I said, there's even karaoke. I mean, listen to this. So back to the story. That little debt collecting at the beginning, the guy that we collected the debt from is found dead in that same alley that we left him in. Now, obviously, Kiryu didn't kill the guy. The guy was still moving around, but somehow the guy is left dead, and the last person known to be near him is, of course, Kiryu. So, obviously, he's in trouble with the Dojima family because, I mean, the police know, you know, the police know of a mob killing in the area, which is against the rules of the Yakuza, at least from what I've gathered. And of course, it's in the alleyway, the lot, that the Yakuza, obviously, well, at least a member of the Dojima family wants to buy. And since there's been a murder there's going to be a lot more attention in that place. Meaning, Kiryu is in trouble. And eventually, he is called over to HQ. And this is where we truly see the amazing aesthetic and ambience that Yakuza 0 really shows. I mean, look at the cutscene here.
Oh, ずいぶん待たしてくれるじゃねえか。偉くなったもんだな。おう、キリ。
This is Daisaku Kuze, the lieutenant of the Dojima family. So basically, he's the main person that Kiryu answers to, or at least all these guys in the room are. These are the lieutenants, of course. It's crazy. And basically we end up finding out that Kiryu, or at least we're thinking, has been framed. We're thinking Kiryu has been framed, but obviously he's got no evidence to prove that he was framed, and the only evidence that is there is that he beat the crap out of that guy in the alley, and the mob, or at least the Yakuza, sorry, they know about it. Because they got a call from the loan shark that we were working for at the beginning. So basically, yeah, this is how Kiryu figures out that, yeah, he may or may not have been set up. The lieutenants end up telling Kiryu to basically turn himself in. Kiryu, on the other hand, wants to prove that he's been framed, so he goes to visit the loan shark and is met with none other than Yakuza, who basically heavily implies that he did set him up just so he could get Kiryu to sell out Kasama-san, who basically is the leader of the Dojima family, from my understanding. Basically brought up Kiryu and Nishikiyama, brought them up and, you know, put them into the Yakuza with him, of course. Yakuza wants to be the leader of the family, and he essentially wants Kiryu to sell out Kasama, and basically just be undercover so Yakuza can get more information on the lot, because whoever owns the lot basically becomes the new leader of the Dojima family. I don't know why the lot is important. I haven't exactly progressed enough in the game to really find that out, but that's essentially what it is. And you find out later on in the story that the Yakuza isn't exactly the only group that wants to own the lot. It's really important for some reason. I don't know. Kiryu obviously rejects Yakuza, and obviously this leads into the climax of Chapter 1. Chapter 1, the ending of that feels like the end of an entire game. I genuinely thought, hey, have I beaten the game here? I was starting to think that, you know, because it really has the climactic feeling. It has a brilliant sense of finality, and man, this final level in Chapter 1 is incredible. To end off Chapter 1, Kiryu comes to the conclusion that there is only one way to keep this whole thing from basically biting the guy he looks up to in the arse. You know, he wants to protect Kazama-san, so he elects to take the responsibility alone and leave the Yakuza for good. Obviously, you know, the guy that him and Nishiki go for advice to, basically he doesn't like it at all, because obviously, why would you want to leave the Yakuza? You know, leaving the Yakuza is seen as disrespectful, obviously. But basically, Kiryu's heart is set on basically leaving, like retiring from the Yakuza and becoming a civilian. That way he doesn't have to turn himself in, because he doesn't answer to the Yakuza, and that way he can also keep looking further into the topic and essentially get Yakuza to hand over the killer, or at least, you know, get Yakuza under fire in the Dojima family. So obviously Kiryu heads to the family headquarters, but as you can see, nobody's happy with this. So basically, Kiryu stands his ground. He's a good man.
やめろ、桐生。錦山の言ってることは正しい。正しいかどうかなんてどうでもいい。所詮俺は風間のおやっさんについていくために極道になっただけの半端もんです。俺の不始末でおやっさんに迷惑かけるくらいなら、俺にも覚悟があります。おめえなめたこと言ってんじゃねえぞ。あ？俺の言うことが聞けねえのか？ああ、桐生。ええ。たとえ風間のおやっさんが止めたとしても、 俺は行きます。
こん
許してください、柏木さん。錦、車頼む。長い間お世話になりました。
It is such a great scene, and scenes like this are littered all over Yakuza 0. Like I said, it's written really well, and obviously after this we see a little flashback of basically how Kiryu and Nishikiyama got into the Yakuza. At first Kazama didn't want the two of them in the Yakuza. He kind of wanted to, you know, protect them from the Yakuza. That's what I'm sort of assuming. They came from the orphanage essentially, and that's why they sort of owe their lives to Kazama. And obviously Kiryu and Nishikiyama really wanted to get into the Yakuza, and they essentially sort of begged him, while also telling him he has no right to stop them. But yeah, eventually they got into the Yakuza, and again, this is what I mean by the whole sense of finality. It tells the story in such a great way that you really start to understand the motivations of everybody. You start to understand the characters. It's done so darn well. And this leads into the final confrontation with Kaze. I keep thinking I'm getting his name wrong. Probably am. But yeah, this ends with the final confrontation as you fight your way through the buildings. And, mate, it's so cool. It's so cool. It's basically the game at its best. And essentially it leads up to a final battle with Kaze. And basically, obviously, Kiryu survives and ends up retiring from the Yakuza and becomes a civilian, meaning he can now basically pursue who framed him and just essentially clear his name, you know? And that leads us into Chapter 2, where the game truly opens up. Not only do we get full access to the city that we're in, but also we get access to side missions, which is some of the funniest and best parts of the game. I have to talk about it. Chapter 2 opens up with us meeting this mysterious man. Kiryu is quite dejected and falls to his knees essentially. You know, the dramatic sort of stuff that you see in these kinds of you know, media all the time. It's great. So we meet this man called Tachibana, who basically runs this real estate company, if I remember rightly. And Chapter 2 basically becomes all about investigating Tachibana. That's where we're kind of going to end the spoilers sort of thing. But yeah, basically the lot that we've already mentioned, the Yakuza and Tachibana's real estate, all play a big part of the first two chapters and probably even the entire game. You can also collect collectibles, which includes the P word, like these guys, these women. Oh, I don't know. It's really weird. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm probably not going to collect them. But I mean, if you like that sort of stuff, if you're into that sort of stuff, then yeah, there's that for you. It's all over Yakuza. It's the women in this game, oh my god, it's really misogynistic, but it makes sense for the setting, you know? It's not, you know, it's, I don't know, man, I don't know how to explain it, so I'm not going to. It's not the primary focus of the game. The women, essentially, in this culture, a lot of them are just prostitutes in the game. It's, yeah, that's basically all they are in this game. There are some women actually in the game that are strong, independent, so they have that sort of thing. So they're not just putting girls as prostitutes just to do that, although it can feel like that at times. But essentially, it does work with the setting, it works with the game, but it would only work in this sort of setting, you know? If it was in any other game, yeah, people would start having some proper issues with it, but it's fine for this one. They don't take it over, they don't take it too much over the top. It's a little over the top here and there, but it's over the top in character for the game, so yeah, there's that. But if you're easily offended by that sort of thing, yeah, then you shouldn't consider even playing the game, you know? But it's not offensive, you know, it's just, yeah, that's just how girls were treated in this sort of environment with the Yakuza and that sort of stuff. So again, it works for the setting and the time, and that's pretty much all I'm going to say on that. So let's just get into the side missions, because I've been itching to talk about them for quite a while now. So I'm going to talk about 2 side missions, the first of which, basically we meet these greased up hooligans who are actually not hooligans. They're posh people masquerading as hooligans because it's the popular thing, and we've basically got to teach them how to be hooligans, how to be really rude and stuff. And there's not really too much I can say on it. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it's quite fun. It is quite fun because we see more Akiru's character and how he interacts with other people, because he is kind at heart. He just has to be really hardened because of the whole Yakuza thing. But now that he's a civilian, this is how he does these side missions. He can essentially just do whatever he wants. And so basically he helps this band become, you know, what they're foreseen as to the quote-unquote rebellious youth of Japan. And basically they want us to teach they want us to teach them how to be real hardcore hooligans instead of, you know, the law-abiding choir boys as they say they are. So yeah, we do that. It's pretty fun, and yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's all we gotta say. But the second one is even better. You know, I bet there's loads of side missions in this game that I just haven't done yet. But the ones I have done, they really, really captured my my attention. The second side mission that I did, however, I cannot praise highly enough. So basically, we're just walking down the street. This is something that, you know how there's stranger missions in Red Dead? It's sort of like that. Basically, we walk into these 2 people. I think it's production staff. I can see it on screen right now. Production staff and a cameraman, and essentially this is the creators of Yakuza's sort of perspective, their sort of idea on how Americans sort of film their you know, documentaries, reality shows, whatever. And essentially they need a producer, so somebody who in this mission, basically you just gotta produce the props and stuff. And yeah, we essentially become that. They dress us up in a whole different outfit, and basically the mission tasks us with providing the props for the show, which can lead to some funny interactions, as you'll see right now.
Oi.
Yeah. Oi.
I just love it. I love it so much. This was Honestly, out of the entire game, other than the fighting through the building up to Kaze thing, this was the most memorable thing. This is the second most memorable thing I did within the first 2 chapters of the game. So again, I cannot speak highly enough on it. It was also a really humbling, a really nice message the whole side mission had by the end of it.
Yeah. Hey.
So yeah, there you have it. That was essentially my first experience with a Yakuza game. I'm definitely going to revisit it to finish it. I just had to get rid of it for storage issues. Obviously, I'm going to finish it. It's going to be great. I can't wait to do it because it's so fun. These boss battles are actually really, like, they're sort of challenging. They're not too much though, and they really encourage you to use the props. I mean, look at this. I'm literally whacking this dude with a sofa. It's so beautifully over the top, but also beautifully grounded perfectly. You know, it's such a perfect blend. And if this is what the entire Yakuza series is like, I mean, I'm going to play all of them. But yeah, Kiru is not the only character I get to play as. Apparently there's this new one. Well, apparently he's a big character as part of the Yakuza universe, but this would be the first I'm hearing of him. There was this really long cutscene that kind of built up his character. He seems like a really calm, collected individual who packs a punch though, you know? Don't mess with this guy. It was a really long cutscene, and that was another thing I have to say. Like, Yakuza takes a lot of time to build up its characters. You know, you really start to learn what each character is like individually. It's memorable. I find the names difficult to remember, but if you show me the photo of a character, I can tell you what that character is like, you know? The names are only hard to remember because they're foreign names, you know? Like Nishikiyama, I had to look that up multiple times, same with Kaze, you know? Same with Tachibana. I can't remember this dude's name for the life of me, but I can tell you about his character, you know? I'm not going to because it'd be spoiling stuff, but I could. It's a very fun game, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this new character is all about, quite frankly. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching this Yakuza 0 sort of review. Yeah, it was essentially a review of the first 2 chapters, basically outlining my first experience with the game. It was so much fun. I cannot speak highly enough of it. If you guys want to see more, if this video does well, I might actually end up live streaming it at some point. Maybe I won't do 0, but maybe I'll revisit Yakuza. Maybe I'll like play Yakuza Kiwami, which was the remaster of the first game. So yeah, if this video does well, I'll end up live streaming Yakuza Kiwami, or at least doing a video on it at some point. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Until next time, stay safe and peace.